the new film based off Stephen King's book, which is also technically a remake of the mini-series that came out in 1990. It's not really a mini-series, though, because it's 2 hour-and-a-half-long episodes. It's not really a series, just like 2 movies, but whatever, that's what they call it. That miniseries was basically trying to cram everything from the book into that story. This movie is only wisely focusing on the children's part of the story, where these 7 friends are all being haunted by images of this clown, Pennywise. And one of these kids named Bill, his brother Georgie went missing because of the clown Pennywise. So they kind of have a history with this thing. So not only are they trying to not get killed by Pennywise, the dancing clown, but they're also trying to find a way to defeat it. Now here's the thing. I've seen the It miniseries, and it's not that good. It's kind of dated. The first half is definitely better than the second half, though. Tim Curry is the most consistently great thing about it. Now, the book, I own the book. Here it is, though. Yeah. I still gotta read a lot of it. So I went into this movie more so thinking the trailers look pretty good. The director of this film, who did Mama in 2013, actually not a bad movie. And the miniseries is just kinda okay, so there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. And that's exactly what they did. It was spectacularly spooky. And as I said earlier, this movie is really only focusing on the kids' story, these 7 friends, the Losers Club, and these kids are awesome in this movie because this whole thing is riding on their performances. If they all fail, like a lot of child actors have done in the past, then this movie could have really suffered. But all these guys are great in their roles. They all have great chemistry with each other. And because of how they're only focusing on the kids and not flashing back to, now they're adults now, like they did in the original miniseries, they have time to flesh them out more, and you can actually get to know their own family and life situations a lot better. So that when certain stuff starts to hit the fan, you're actually more engaged with it. You actually care more about the characters because you've been experiencing a part of their lives for quite some time, and you actually care about them because the writing for their characters and the performances given is pretty good and relatable. And of course, this doesn't feel like Hollywood kids or kids that are just completely unrealistic. These kids swear like normal kids swear. They act with each other how they normally would, telling your mom jokes. It is perfect kid chemistry and writing in this film. They absolutely nailed it. I was a little worried about that. Maybe they were going to go a little bit too overboard on some parts, or maybe they were going to portray them not as realistically, but nope, they actually did them perfectly. There's 4 standouts in my mind when it comes to the kid, one of them being Jaden Lieberher, I think that's how you pronounce his name, as Bill. He's more so the leader of the Losers Club, and he was really good since he's also having to deal with not only a stutter, which of course he has to do himself through the performance, but also his character is dealing with more trauma because he lost his brother and he still hasn't found them. They never found the body, so that's a part of his quest, trying to see if Georgie is actually still out there, that kind of denial. And whenever he tries to go out and investigate and his friends are tagging along, it's not kind of like this feeling of, oh, this is like, why would you even do this as a kid? After knowing who he is as a character and also what he's kind of been through emotionally, it makes sense for him to want to follow this through. And Sophia Lillis as Beverly Marsh in this movie, she was really good in this movie too. She has to work with a lot of emotional things. There's this one subplot about a rumor that basically has been spreading about who she is as a person throughout her town, and also she has to deal with some really messed up family situations. And in the original miniseries, when they focused on that element, it was just kind of like, oh yeah, that kind of sucks. In this movie though, the way they fleshed that out is disturbing. In fact, that has nothing to do with Pennywise the clown himself, who should be like the star horror attraction. Whenever they cut back to Bev's house, there's just this weird, eerie feeling going on that is almost as terrifying as the dancing clown himself. So seeing how this character acts at this household, and then when she finally gets to branch out and hang out with her friends, there's this really good character arc that's going on there. And Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things, he plays Richie Tozier in this movie. Holy crap, he is really good as this character. Now, in the original miniseries, Seth Green, he was fine, but then they cast the adult version, and he was kind of annoying. In this movie, they actually, I think, perfected perfected his character. He was pretty much the only one who had a lot more comedic relief going for him. There's a couple other jokes sprinkled in throughout, but most of the humor is coming from that character's mouth, and I think they did it really well. Some people could say that he is kind of doing what Guardians of the Galaxy 2 kind of did, which is insert a joke at kind of the worst moment possible. I don't think so. I think they actually utilized his sense of humor to the best of their ability. Not kind of like where there's a joke and then it's followed up by another hysterical joke, but it kind of takes you out of the movie. It was more so like 5 minutes will pass and then maybe you'll hear another joke that's just kind of like that sense of levity that you really kind of need. And it also really works that he's really the main guy dishing out this kind of humor. My final standout with the kids is Jack Dylan Grazer. I think that's the actor who plays Eddie in this movie, who's carrying around inhalers in fanny packs and tons of pills. He had this kind of personality where it could have gotten annoying fast, but this kid is so good in this film. Seeing how he acted with it's kind of like Charlie Day as a kid, pretty much. He's talking really high pitched, going really fast, but it's never annoying. You actually kind of like him more because of that kind of personality he brings. And also because he's able to pull it off so well. There's a lot of other kid actors who will have this kind of performance and it will just be one of the most annoying things ever. But him in this movie, they actually, once again, the writing is really good here. So he doesn't really come off as annoying. And in fact, he even has a sort of character arc going on later in the movie. And I was like, alright, that's really good. Those four were really the standout characters kid-wise for me. Everyone else was also really good. And even some of the adults, in the trailer they showed like a few shots of like creepy adults and I was like, oh, are they gonna act over the top the whole time? And honestly, they really didn't. Those shots were kind of out of context. I feel like watching it in the actual movie was like, okay, yeah, that is a little creepy, but it's not like out of left field from the scene kind of creepy. And speaking of creepy, this film is actually a little bit more than that. There's a lot of just nightmare fuel in this movie. There's a lot of great executed scares. And I'm sure that there's some people out there saying, oh, it's just jump scares again. What makes jump scares fail is either A, it's a false jump scare, and it's just a kind of means of giving you a false scare for just 1 second, only for you to realize, oh, it's something completely innocent. And secondly, it doesn't work if you're being jumped at by something that's not even scary. This movie has really freaky things throughout, more than Pennywise the clown. There's other things that, as you know, he can transform into, and wow, I won't spoil it, but wow, there's literally a scene where I once again won't spoil it, but everyone in the theater who I was with, we all had the same jump kind of scream reaction at this particular scene. There's plenty of other scary scenes in the movie where everyone was kind of like getting freaked out, but there was at least 1 or 2 other people that were just kind of sitting there. This particular moment, you could tell that everyone in my theater was just on edge. It was honestly amazing. And I really gotta give the director credit for this. Andy Muschietti, I was kind of worried about this because even though I thought Mama was a good, solid horror movie, I didn't know if he could do it, like, in an amazing way. He actually pulled it off. A lot of it has to do with his direction. A lot of it has to do with some of his visual horror going on. And technically, this movie is very well made. There's a lot of fantastic cinematography going on here. A lot of great uses of just darkness and shadows. This movie does a really good job of getting you immersed with the actual horror, with these characters that you care about and you want to follow, and this clown that is very scary. And speaking of the clown, I think it's about time to talk about Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. Now, Tim Curry, he's a legend. He's one of the best actors ever. And it bums me out that he can't act anymore, as you know, but him as Pennywise the clown, he's really entertaining. I wouldn't say he's very scary. He's just kind of funny and hilarious to watch. This movie, though, no offense, Tim, but Bill Skarsgård nailed it. Bill Skarsgård completely transformed to play Pennywise, not just makeup-wise, but also voice-wise and just, like, the mannerisms that he has, like, nervous, like, just nervous kind of talking and just kind of tics every once in a while. He was outstanding as Pennywise. Some people might complain that he's not in the movie a whole lot, but I think they utilized him as Pennywise amazingly. Every time you see him, he does something to freak you out in the best way possible. And seeing the kind of tricks he has up his sleeve, seeing that just made me think, wow, thank goodness that they actually did decide to remake this, because this is another example of remakes being done 100% correctly, because this movie really did go all out in a lot of different ways, but in ways that work. Not something that was kind of off-putting or just kind of like, well, what am I watching? This is really something that gets you engrossed in the situation. It gets you terrified on the edge of your seat. And I hate to say this, I feel like I say this a few times with some horror movies, but when I took a shower last night after seeing the movie, I had the shower curtain pulled back a little halfway so I could, see what was going on. Just not... I'm ashamed to admit this, but that, and I left the lamp on at night when I went to sleep. I'm sorry. But what can I say? Can you really blame me? Bill Skarsgård nailed it as Pennywise. In fact, I would say that it's one of the creepiest performances I think I've ever seen. He's actually up there now. I would actually say that about Bill Skarsgård because he nailed it. I do have a few issues with this movie, one of them being that there's a scene where this female bully, not the main bully Henry, but the female bully that they kind of introduced in the beginning of the movie, then they cut to a different scene of her, like about midway point in the movie. She was really annoying, and not just because she's a bully and I have to hate her because of this, really just because that was the one part that really wasn't that realistic. You have this girl talking like she's the leader of this bad gang, like some evil organization. It's like, this is the one kind of part that you're dealing with that's not that realistic. You have these 7 kids that are hanging out, and they're realistic, their chemistry's on point. Then you cut to this girl who's not only annoying with her performance, but the writing is just not good, and it's not anything believable. It's kind of this trend that's still going on with Hollywood. Whenever they try to do school movies, they'll always portray the bullies as the evil bad guys, like there's some sort of supervillain. They'll even give them some supervillain kind of dialogue, and it just doesn't work. I wish Hollywood would realize this, because for a while, when they're focusing on Henry Bowers and his friends, it didn't really work that much for me, because I know in the back of my head, this is something that just isn't believable to me. Like, you're talking in a way that kids I don't even think would talk. In fact, even though this is set in the 80s, and obviously I wasn't born then, I don't even think that was even realistic for that time period. I give Henry Bowers a little bit more of a pass, though, because later on in the movie they actually reveal something about who he kind of is as this character, where I was like, okay, that actually kind of makes sense. And if you've seen the original miniseries, there's a scene where one of his bully friends actually, like, confronts him about something. That's in this movie, too. So that kind of works. They kind of portrayed it as like, yeah, he's clearly messed up, but even his friends kind of see him as, like, stepping a little too far. So I can kind of excuse that, but that girl at the beginning, who also shows up a little later in the movie, and just that feeling as a whole, bully movie-wise, is still kind of there, and it's kind of hard to just ignore that. But overall, it is so great. It is a horror movie done absolutely right in a lot of different ways. It's actually scary. Jump scares were utilized perfectly. Bill Skarsgård is amazing as Pennywise, but also the kids, they're also excellent in their respected roles. I'm gonna give it an A-. I think the script could have worked a little bit better as far as the character writing for the bullies go, because they really just don't act like that, and it's pretty annoying seeing them do that a lot in Hollywood movies still. But I was still entertained with the 7 lead characters. The Losers Club is amazing. They all work well together. Bill Skarsgård is just pure nightmare fuel in this film. And Andy Muschietti, director of this movie, I would love to see you direct the next film focusing on the adults. Seriously, can you do this? Please. I want to see you. Only you do this. Can you do this, please? But if you've seen it, leave in the comments below what you thought of it. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.